Well, we can end stream right there. No. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Morgan.
Good morning, Nick. Ooh, got the shaky camera there for a second. How are you?
Getting really excited over there. Is it because of our conversation? And for all of you new people this morning, Morgan asked me a very important question, and I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
Oh, no.
And is what the green that Morgan has come up with? Yeah, right there. What do you think it tastes like?
It just dawned on me. Yeah, I think it could. This is a new green. We changed the colors on our name this week, and I definitely think it tastes like that mint chocolate chip ice cream. It's just that color. It's a total fake color too. You know it is. They just added in there so it tastes minty or mintier, I guess.
Is that like a marketing play?
I think it's a
or is it sales?
I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. Well, good morning, Nick. Whenever anybody wants to tell us what color this green tastes like, just drop it in the comments and say hello. Do you want to introduce our topic for today?
Yeah. Building blocks for modern content creation. And I would have to say it's one of the most common things we get asked. And it's also one of the things that we get the most excuses about. Hey, I don't have time to create content. Why? Content doesn't take that much time. What actually takes a lot of time is getting to know your customers at a level in which the content is worthwhile. Hey, and so what we're going to be talking about today is all different levels of content creation and also how to make it work. Because there's one thing to create it, it's another thing to get it out in the world so it does the work for you. And that might sound a little deceiving, but really great content creation and distribution is what demand gen is based on. And whether you're in sales and you want to be a self-sufficient salesperson, or you're a field marketer and you're just tired of calling on people that don't want to talk to you, you're going to like this because this will help you out a lot.
Yeah, when this topic was selected, I was sharing this a little bit before we got on live stream today, but what had really spawned this idea for me today was I was thinking about Google Plus. Do you remember Google Plus, Nick?
Talking about irrelevant social media platforms?
What an old school social media platform. But what I remember back when I had my first web design practice, and we also did social media consulting because it was like 2010 and it was all the rage. So like if you're building websites, you might as well do social media. And I had remembered the strategy from that time was game the Google algorithm because it was a little easier at the time by publishing a lot of content on a blog that was like SEO keyword stuffed, or at least SEO keyword optimized. There was some black hat stuff going on at the time. And then just shotgun it across every social media network out there. You just copy pasta, a link and a caption, and all of the tech enabled this. Like that's how Hootsuite got started, right? You post the same thing on Pinterest that you posted on LinkedIn, that you posted on Facebook. And all these companies had a Facebook page, an Insta page, a Pinterest page, a Twitter account, a Google Plus.
Omnichannel approach.
Yeah, the OG omnichannel, right? And obviously content creation is different today than it used to be. And mostly the trends that I see, and we can dive into this as sort of our first get-go, is I think audio especially is now dominant, and not just like podcasts, but TikTok is a great example, and even YouTube. So like between audio and video, I think those are not just insurgent, but like dominant forms of content creation today. I think the written word is still crucial. It's still an important skill for content creators. But a lot of the skills that you develop in the written word, you also develop in audio visual stuff. So getting better at communicating in complete thoughts or complete sentences, and the ability to like drive a narrative, create a story, and all the rest of it. Like this is the fundamentals, I think, of a modern content creation. It starts with a realization of where the technology is today. And that's mostly audio, video. Like, when did you listen to your first podcast? I'd be interested. Do you remember?
You know what? And this is kind of a funny evolution. I thought they were stupid.
Right?
For the longest time.
Right?
And then I bet you I only seriously started listening to podcasts about a year or two ago. And the reason being is it was so easy to go and get them on Spotify and
Mm-hmm.
download them and go do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest thing is I would always go on other platforms to learn about which ones are worthwhile because there's just too much choice. If you're just going on to Spotify or any of the podcast platforms, it's too hard to find just one. And then you go and you find one you like, and now you can do that deep dive and you can listen to like 10, 20, 30 episodes and you feel like it's the fastest way to learn.
Totally. Well, and to your point, I think that there was a long phase of like first adopter novelty, sort of podcasts were new, and since the early 2000s, but nobody really had a podcast even in the early 2010s. It sort of started to sprinkle when like news networks got in on the game, and I remember like NPR had some podcasts I listened to back in the day, but I don't think it really took off until a few years ago. And so I think you're sort of in line with where I am, Nick, which is podcasts are sort of this emergent form of content. We're only a few years into it. And same thing with short form video. I mean, TikTok obviously was a dance platform for a long time, but now Instagram Reels are a thing, YouTube Shorts are a thing. I mean, I have my Vine days. I loved Vine. Sadly, it got shut down. And Vine was like the OG short form video platform, and it was just a little experiment. And then what you see today is you see these little compilations show up on TikTok and show up on YouTube, and it
And
gets
all the Vine
repurposed.
stars too that are killing it on TikTok.
Totally. And I think all of this points out that there's a new set of building blocks and a new set of skills for folks, especially salespeople, maybe marketers, who want to build content for this new era. And I really want to dwell here for a moment because it's something you and I have been talking a lot about this week and a little bit last week, which is salespeople are SDRs, account executives, whoever, are really primed to be a focal point of content creation. It's just not usually supported at a company that the SDRs or the AEs are actually doing content. It's marketing's job, quote unquote. But all of these platforms have democratized access, have increased access, and there's such leverage for individual creators to use those algorithms to their benefit, even when they're promoting an individual company and simultaneously building a personal brand. They're sort of like a 1-2 punch.
Yeah. Instead of throwing out a hope and a prayer that you're calling somebody at the perfect time, you're putting it out for the world to see and consume and become part of a community so that when they're ready, they'll come to you. But I think the biggest thing I want to state in here is the one reason why content works so well is because you're giving people that criteria of what good looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we're going through this content creation, the kind of the base requirement is you need to know your customer really well. And this is honestly the hardest part. And maybe, hey, Morgan, did you want to go and share like what you learned yesterday doing our latest experiment? Because I think it's important to
Yes.
see like just how well it works and how quickly it can work.
So this is well, there's really two things I think that are important. One was I went and looked for companies that had active SDRs, BDRs, AEs in content creation out on LinkedIn, and it is extremely difficult to find. And that's true for large companies. I was looking at, the 51 to 200 employee bracket, and I was looking at small ones. The small startups where the co-founders are out on LinkedIn are great examples of like bootstrappy teams getting a lot of organic reach. But a whole sales team actually active out is very rare. I spent hours researching and came up with maybe a handful that could qualify. So I think there's this huge opportunity in the market for a company to get its act together and really empower and support their sales teams to create content for LinkedIn mostly, but it could be any platform that makes sense for the product that they're trying to sell. I also think the sort of related experiment here, Nick and I have been running this, as we mentioned before in these live shows, we've been running this strategy where we essentially comment, five?
Just 5 to 10 times. And then if you have extra, then away you go.
And it's always valuable comments. It's not thank you for posting, how insightful, all the rest of it. I know Nick likes to stir the pot, so he adds some good controversy. I tend to just add my own perspective, and occasionally I stir the pot. But I have seen profile views increase more than 50% in less than a week. And I had
2 days.
in like 2 days of doing this. And so I had, a good trajectory of doing this, and I kind of laid off for a couple weeks just to see what would happen. And then I tried it again, and suddenly it's shot back up. And what that means from a revenue perspective, from a sales cycle perspective, is you have a lot of potential inbound traffic coming to your profile to learn more about you and to learn more about your company. And if you combine that with a thoughtful content strategy, however that makes sense, suddenly there's a lot of value that you can provide to the front end for the people who are finding you in the algorithm, who are visiting your profile, who are seeing your comments. I mean, the algorithm promotes all sorts of things to your connections and their connections so that they see how different people are commenting. And that's just commenting, let alone content creation. So I think...
And I think we got to be like, that is content creation too.
I mean,
like,
it is.
Just for people to know, because even LinkedIn's pushing it.
Mm-hmm.
And a quick little shout out to Lavender. If you want to see a company that is crushing it with content creation, Lavender's not a big company. And Will Alred.
Alred. Yep.
I always thought it was Alfred. Sorry, buddy. Look at what he's doing and how he's engaging. There's a reason they're crushing it, and it's not because it's by accident.
Definitely not. I think this comes back to, so we're talking about building blocks today, and I think the first building block is to really understand, even at just a high level, you don't have to go super technical, what different platforms promote. And Facebook's organic reach is dead. It just doesn't matter anymore. The only thing that matters on Facebook's are groups. That's the only thing that seems to appear on their algorithm anymore. If you're a company doing organic posts, it's just not worth your time. Or paid, of course. You can always do paid posts, paid advertising on Facebook. I think on Instagram, Reels are definitely emergent. There's a huge reach on Reels because they're trying to promote that as a competitor to TikTok. But on LinkedIn, organic content is king. I mean, just the amount of...
On personal pages,
not on company pages. So even just having those fundamental understanding of how the algorithm works, that takes a quick Google search to even go more in depth from just that high level list I gave. You can understand how the different pieces of the puzzle works. And every content creator, unless if you have like a ginormous marketing team supporting your efforts, is essentially an individual content creator. It's up to you to decide what to comment and how to post and how often to post. And that means you have to be empowered or have to understand how these platforms work. So on LinkedIn, obviously, organic is huge. Can I talk about my TikTok experiment for a second? I'm really excited.
Fire away, buddy.
So I'm going to post more about this next week on LinkedIn. So if we're not connected, connect with me. But I did a 2-week experiment on TikTok for B2B, for B2B content. And I learned a ton about how the platform works. And I think the high level takeaways mostly are that casual content wins. It's just part of the platform. It's important to be casual. It's important to be insightful and funny. Things that are super strategic, high level, meta almost, although we can't use that word anymore, can we? Because of Facebook's rebrand.
Maybe that was a smarter rebrand than most people think.
It's omnipresent in my mind. It's more meta. And I think the that stuff performed really poorly. The tactical stuff that was really straightforward really performed well. And then lastly, this is the key insight. Seth Godin's principle of the idea virus, ideas that spread win, holds beautifully on TikTok. If you can get your video shared, that seems to be a causal relationship with how many views and how much engagement you get. So all of my videos that performed above average or way above average, I had like a 2,200 view video, got shared a ton of times. And the videos that performed really poorly got shared 0 times. And so there's this like interesting thing of learning how the algorithm goes. Like this is a fundamental building block of how to use and how to leverage these social networks mostly for content creation. I see this comment though.
Yeah, and I, if you don't mind, I'd like to take it right now.
Go for it, Nick.
It ties in perfectly with what you're talking about. So I'm going to throw it up here. I'm not sure who it's from because it's showing just LinkedIn user, but throw it up here. Why do LinkedIn company pages organically do worse than personal pages? Let's think about this. When we share information, is it company to company or is it person to person?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to how we share. And who do you trust more, a company or an individual with a face?
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at how many people go on Forbes, go on the news, go on all these high profile places and then don't sell anymore. And then you look at Oprah recommending a book and all of a sudden it getting sold out for the next 3 months because it's a person that they trust. Brands don't hold that type of trust and they don't share as quickly or as in depth. So it doesn't hold as much value. So LinkedIn has weighted personal pages higher than company pages. And what works on a company page isn't the same that works on a personal page. Um, and it's hard because you have to get past the vanity metrics too, because video holds more weight. Less people will see it, but more people will follow it and it'll build a stronger community because you can share who you are and they get like a good taste of your personality. Where on company pages, quotes, text-based, pictures, they all perform significantly better.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's knowing your mix and knowing why, but it all comes down to knowing your customer.
Mm-hmm.
Want to
Yeah.
answer the next one?
Oh, totally. Throw it up from Kit. Hi, Kit. How are you? How do you not fall into the trap of clickbait, polarizing content to generate shares versus generating real value? This
Great
is our
question.
bread and butter, baby,
Yeah.
Nick. This is, I mean, to me, one of there are three core elements to a brand, one of which is value, and the other of which is trust. And between trust and value, the point of creating and generating content sits within a larger strategy around your company. This is at least my perspective and my view. The reason that I post content on LinkedIn is not just to post content on LinkedIn. And I know there are plenty of people who just post on TikTok because they want to get famous, and that's fine. But as this is more of a B2B Power Hour show, we are thinking about how this relates to revenue and how this relates to cost of acquisition and investments, especially from sales and marketing. And to me, I think the more that we show up with consistent, real value, the more long-term payoff we have. I think when we adopt the short-term focus, the clickbait, the polarizing content, just to generate engagement, it may actually increase visibility, but it may at the same time hurt trust and value in the company at sort of at a distance, because even though they're engaging with you, it's almost they're also almost engaging with the company that you represent. And I think the trap that gets laid for us is paying attention to the vanity metrics. So for example, the videos that I post on my personal page don't get actually a ton of views compared to a text post. Like actually this last week, I had a text post that got 10 times the amount of visibility that a video post got, which is just crazy to me. So I could,
polls will do even more.
and polls will do probably 20 times more than any video. So certainly a mix is healthy and you can experiment with what works. But for me, the reason I continue to share videos from this live show and from other stuff that we do is because it really drives value to the people who see it. So for me, even though I get less views, I know I'm going to be building that trust and value in my brand, a personal brand, or the B2B Power Hour brand in the long haul. And that's going to have long-term payoffs. And this is sort of previously, Nick and I, we've talked about shifting gears. So when you're in first gear and you're in survival mode, and basically the company is struggling on cash or ARR, and there's only so much, there's all the attention on the short term, then yeah, that's the trap. It's that we need to get more views, more clicks, more engagement, and all the rest of it. And, on a 60-day timeline, maybe. But at some point, you have to learn to switch into second gear. And that's this long-term perspective, because that's really where the healthy stuff happens, at least in my perspective. Nick, do you have thoughts on this?
Yes, I really do. When I actually started researching, and I mean not meta, I wasn't looking at other research and then pulling my own conclusions. I realized that a lot was an opinion, and I was reading a lot of opinion pieces and was getting secondhand information. When I started actually asking customers or potential customers, what are you researching or how are you researching when you make a decision? And it was funny because it came up in Refine Labs.
Oh yeah,
The
on DGL, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, holy crap, that's a really good question. So I started asking video. They listened to video, and guess what number 2 is? And it was kind of, it flip-flopped depending on the individual, but 2 answers only came up. Video and podcasts. That's it. And so video was a good taste. People, unless they needed to see something, Video was number one if they wanted to like a how-to, or they wanted an explanation, or they wanted to dive deeper in something that's very visual. But for the most part, when it comes to knowledge exchange, people just wanted to go and download a podcast and go for a walk, do cleaning, do something else, and keep diving into this information because they needed to get educated. And me and David, I saw some kid had brought up David. We were even talking about that it takes about 1.5 to 3 times the average sales cycle from first touch to they enter pipeline. Well, that's accelerated only by you being the most credible source on the market, by you being the one that guided them through that process. So you got to think of your content instead of going for the clickbait. Yeah, that'll get you lots of touch points. But what would you rather have? Big vanity numbers or customers knocking at your door?
It's the classic thing that I always pose to clients. If there's a web project involved and they always get worried about traffic numbers, I'm like, it's okay to only have 600 visitors in a week if 500 of them are your target clients. Like the law of large numbers is the old playbook. That's Google Plus era, that we just want 100,000 people to come to our site because that means we're going to be super successful. And on the flip side, the modern playbook, to what Nick was talking about, is about buyer enablement. People don't have this linear buying process. They're going to come to your site a couple of times. They're going to learn about stuff. They may even talk to an SDR, but then they need to get nurtured, and then maybe they'll come back eventually. That's just how the modern buying process works. And the more content that provides value, that builds trust, that demonstrates advantage in the marketplace, the better off you will be in the long run because you're just showing up consistently. And actually, I was just talking with Kit the other day about this, about permission, Seth Godin's concept. Permission is when literally somebody wants to hear from you because you're delivering anticipated, personal, and relevant concepts to them.
Can I go back a step on this whole permission thing? So somebody had wrote that brand.
I think it's David who's
is it David?
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, David.
Yeah.
Dooley and Refine Labs. Mm-hmm. The reason being is that people connect with people. Yes, they might trust the brand, and yes, the brand might have credibility in that space, but nobody says, I'm going to reach out to Refine Labs. Like, I'm going to go and call Chris because I need to go and amp up my demand gen. You always associate it with a person. So the brand adds credibility, especially when it's done well. Like as a sales professional, when I'm calling and that brand holds weight, I will say, hey, it's Nick with brand, because it adds credibility to that conversation. But they still reach out to an individual. And this is the biggest shift that I'm seeing, is that people no longer go into the company page necessarily as much if they're following individuals' content. And that's why we like to say like the self-sufficient salesperson, because they come to you. Mm-hmm. And the video allows them to get to know you and trust you, and you've guided them through this process. The brand may have been there, but it's not the brand that they ultimately trust. It's the person they feel like they know.
Yeah, and I think, certainly the sort of corporate concept of trust is brand equity, if I can bring this up again. I know, branding guy, I can't help myself. But I think brand equity is genuinely established by great customer experiences. And that's on the pre-transaction, during the transaction, and post-transaction. The reason that people really liked working with a client of mine is not just because the product was good. It was because the sales staff they interacted with were really awesome and took care of all of their needs. And the account executive during the fulfillment process was really responsive and really active. And the brand also aligned with their vision of what it meant to be in this industry. Like there's all of these pieces that sort of create that trust, that create that permission. And content is a way to get in front of people to sort of kickstart that process. Which, if I can jump into this really quick, I think the production of content is incredibly important. There's like some post-production stuff, especially if you're doing audio visual, just to make it look nice. But to me, it's just almost more important to get to distribution for a second. I think it is so much more important to just show up consistently than it is to show up 100% perfect, perfectly edited, amazing produced content at all times. It's just like,
how many amazing books died on the bookshelf and never met, nobody consumed because it just wasn't well distributed.
Mm-hmm. And distribution, I think, extends farther from just thinking about what am I producing. So even if we started like a modern content creation as what am I producing? Am I writing something? Am I recording something? Is it over video? Is it over audio? That is like a great strategic conversation. I think it's important to answer, but it's probably pretty straightforward. You're deciding to write a blog or a newsletter because that's what you think your audience wants. You spin up a live show or a podcast because you know that that's where there's leverage right now, especially on our social media channels. You can redistribute that. That's important. But distribution is the only way that you get in front of the audience that you actually want to serve. So thinking through not just the yes, ship the work. Seth Godin, ship the work. It's not just about creating something that looks really nice. Like, I'll be honest, behind the scenes little curtain here, this is like $100 microphone. Could it be a lot nicer? Absolutely, it could be. Does it make any difference? No. Like, it just doesn't.
That's 100 too.
Oh, okay. Well, we're on the same page then. But I know that there are a lot of on the scale, if you talk to an audio engineer saying, I'm going to start a podcast, that audio engineer is going to have all sorts of technical and expansive requirements for how, what you need for a podcast. And that's not necessarily true when you're just getting started.
Absolutely. Look how many people started with really poor quality and how many people started with really good quality and where they are right now. The biggest thing that I see when I listen to podcasts, because I've done a big deep dive to see which ones I actually like, is there's very few that I feel like are talking to me. Mm-hmm. There's very few that have a target. And David actually brought this up to me the other day that like to win, you have to niche within a niche. And to feel heard, you need to feel understood. And this is the biggest issue with content creation is people don't know their customers well enough. And I would say even when we started this, we didn't have a clear idea, nowhere near a clear idea. And we're still developing that with every show because it is a learning process. And yes, the quality could always be better on audiovisual, but I don't think people care. That's not what keeps them there. Yeah, if you can't hear them in the podcast, of course that's going to be annoying. We've all been there. But if the information isn't worth their time, it doesn't matter in the first place.
Definitely not. And I think I don't know why, but I always say sin. I'm not a particularly religious person, but I keep on saying the sin of podcasting or the sin of marketers. I don't know. I think the sin that lots of podcasters have is they try and think about the 10,000 people that they want to listen to their podcast. And then they try and create content as if those 10,000 people were already listening. Like building a podcast is not Field of Dreams. It is not build it and they will come. Okay. You have to niche within a niche. You have to decide we are going to talk about these specific topics for these particular kinds of people. And that usually means you're only going to get 100 listeners in a little stretch of time, right? But it's so much better to have permission and trust with those core group of people than it is with a much larger audience who like tunes in every once in a while and doesn't really pay attention to you. Like the point of content creation is not just to get visibility, to get famous, so then you have 20,000 different followers. Like it's nice to have 20,000 different followers, but if the point of your content creation is to drive revenue, is to drive visibility for the company that you work for or for your own company, like there's a revenue goal in mind and you want the right kind of people to follow you. Back to the previous example, I would much rather have fewer people follow me who are the right people than a lot of people follow me who aren't the right people.
Yeah, getting relevant comments, getting relevant conversations that drive it forward versus, playing the guesswork where I think, the more I was posting in general, the more general feedback I got, the more lost I was and didn't even know it.
And it's so important that one lesson that I've learned, I can actually share this, and this is so much to Jeffrey's comment that was just in chat and Kit's previously, which is that the more that I have just shipped work, the more I've just done this live show or posted on LinkedIn, the more I realize the individual post doesn't really matter. And that's not that individual posts don't matter, but it is so much more important to create a cadence of consistency and continue to show up with value in different ways than it is to perfectly massage any one individual post. And honestly, if I could coin that, I would say that's the law of TikTok. Like TikTok works. Here's another lesson from the TikTok experiment I did. Unless you go viral, your video caps out in views in 48 hours. So if you have a video that goes viral and reaches 100,000 plus people or whatever, then a lot of those people will go to your profile and swipe through your other videos. But otherwise, your video reach maxes in 48 hours and then it doesn't move from there. It is not like YouTube. Like you can put a video on YouTube and suddenly the algorithm serves it up somehow and suddenly a lot of people view it. That is not TikTok unless if you have something else go viral. And I think that law is actually really beneficial when it comes to content production and distribution for other platforms, which is it's so much more important just to get something out there today, just to comment up 5 times on somebody else's post with valuable insight, connect with some people and post something of value to the people that you want to serve each and every day than it is to get all wrapped up in, well, this is, and I do this too when we edit, like this specific frame isn't right, or, oh no, I forgot to crop this in the right way. It doesn't matter. It's like 2 seconds of somebody's time and attention and nobody's going to really care. Anyways,
I'm just laughing because this conversation does happen quite often.
This conversation does happen a lot. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about in distribution when it comes to building blocks especially is there's a way, content should not exist in a vacuum. So the reason that you're posting out on LinkedIn, for example, or you're leveraging Instagram for a campaign or whatever, is so that that content can reach the people that you want to get after. So if you run, let's say you run an ABM campaign and you're targeting specific accounts and leads within those accounts, one cadence you could create within your content creation strategy is you're going to create a bunch of content. You're going to connect with those leads and accounts. Hopefully some of them pay attention to you just from like a thank you message that you send to them for connecting. And then give it a couple weeks and follow up with a piece of content you post and say, hey, I just posted this and I'd love your feedback on it, or I'd love your insights. I think that this would resonate with you. And so you're really matching up the content that you're creating with the sort of accounts that you want to go after. And that's part of distribution. That's part of generating revenue, especially from content. And that's one of many different strategies people can use, especially sales staff can use to help build trust and relationship with leads and accounts on the front end pre-sale by just saying, hey, we've made this. We think that you could gain something from it or that you might find it valuable. And we'd love to hear what you know. And sometimes they're going to say, wow, this is awesome. And other times they're going to be like, nah, don't contact me again. And that's fine. This is part of the sales process.
And another one that works really well is ask for their opinion.
Yeah.
When you know that particular person or that persona or they know more than you do about a certain subject, nothing feels better than being asked for your opinion because you're recognized for it. So even going back, say you don't talk to them in your cadence for the first 21 to 30 days and you say something comes up that's super relevant. You're like, hey, you're really great on LinkedIn. What do you think about this?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels good. Think of like some of the times people have approached you and how you've learned about content and how you bought. And a lot of this will sound familiar, but it won't look familiar when you're hearing what like the marketing technology companies are saying, and even what some of the sales training companies will tell you to do.
Well, and to your point, it's an advantage in the sales process because not all, but a lot of the competitive landscape is so spammy. The fact that you are willing to cut through the noise and you are able to connect with someone specifically about this particular topic and build a relationship with them, that's an advantage compared to other folks who are out in the marketplace and they're going to put 10,000 names into an email database from Zoom info probably, and then they're going to try and nurture them, whatever the hell that means, and try and build out a campaign around nurturing those relationships. But again, this is sort of shifting gears. Like sometimes if you're in survival mode, you're not encouraged to do that. There's other sorts of incentives inside the company. Leadership has different objectives. And so it does require a shift into second gear to say, okay, let's hold on for a second and let's think about ARR 16 months from now. Let's think about cash flow 16 months from now, and really getting into those specific motions required, each step of the process to connect with someone through content, leveraging content as your way to connect with people. I think that's like a crucial building block, especially for the modern sales team.
Well said. I think this is a great question. For those that are just joining us, yes, it's recorded and you can go and watch it. So absolutely. There'll also be available on the podcast. Would you like to go and answer Ronald's question? I can pull it up for us.
Sure, please do so. How would you go about building a personal brand through your own LinkedIn and a business's brand through content? I've had the unique position of starting a business based off of my personal profile, but I've struggled on where to draw the line between the two. Dude, same. I was about to say, I'm in the same boat probably. I don't know if there is a line to draw. It would be my opinion. And Nick, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts about this. But for me, the reason that people do business with my company is because they also know me. It's right. And back to the previous idea that people connect with people. And even though there's brand concepts and brand equity and that, branding is important, the way that I have always leveraged LinkedIn is peer-to-peer. It's person-to-person. So having a personal brand and having a company's brand are two coexisting missions. They're complementary. They're not competitive, I would say.
They should augment.
They should augment each other. What a good word. They should augment each other. And I think right now, since the algorithm disfavors business brands or business accounts on LinkedIn, it really is to your benefit to continue to build your brand off of your personal page. One of these days, they may change that. LinkedIn can choose to change the algorithm whenever they want. So it's good to have that foundation. But I don't know if they are competitive efforts. And so building your personal brand using content, connecting with people, doing this relationship-based strategy we've sort of been running through is a great way to also build your business's brand with your target audience. And you can also, if you think about a tier of prospects or even clients, and you have your A tier of clients especially, invite them to follow your company brand. That's no big deal. They're A tier clients. They love you, right? And even maybe some of your B tier clients. I don't know. But especially from A tier prospects, one thing you can think about is instead of sharing, here's a little tactical gem. Instead of sharing content that you posted on your personal profile, you could share content that you posted on your business account and ask them for that insight, for that feedback, for that opinion on what you posted. And that's a nice way to provide visibility between those two. That's one of many ideas I could have for this.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a very, very top of mind question. And I would even go if you were to go and share our content, or if you were to go and recommend us, do you recommend me and Morgan, or do you recommend the B2B Power Hour? Mm-hmm. Which content do you follow? Which content do you share? Which content do you comment on? And so I'm not saying that one doesn't go without the other, but you have to build credibility in both fields, but one should be more personal, and where the other should be more, and maybe even David can answer this better, but it should be about your category, and one to be about you, why you. And I think if I were to go and redo things, I would make my LinkedIn profile all about what uniquely qualifies me to do what I do, how my horrible experiences in life that I suffered through and learned from made me uniquely qualified to tackle challenges that you can't, Morgan, or anyone else. Mm-hmm. Where my business profile will take the best of those things and look at how you're uniquely qualified to go and target that category, not you as an individual.
And I think if I can push back and shave off a little bit of it, I don't disagree with, in principle, the idea of centering the profile on me. It is my profile. But I would add, or the narrative I would construct is about how that relates to my client's problems or their worldview, their expectations. So basically, it's an expertise positioning. So if you're positioning yourself as an expert in XYZ, you want to construct a narrative around you're experiencing these problems. Here's exactly why. Here's how I can help. And here's, the results that I've had or other social proof that you can have. So I don't disagree, I guess, in principle that it is about me. It's my profile. But I think it's important that narrative is really constructed about them and why they should care about you, basically.
No, that was a really good point, because as soon as you start talking too much about you, That's what we see on LinkedIn all the time, is the endless promo reel, the ads, the blank shares, the things that people don't care about because there's no unique point of view. There's no narrative that people can understand. So if it is all about you and it's not through their eyes and, in their own words, that's where it's really tough. Eh?
And you just stumbled on I was just about to bring this up because the question that I hear often when it comes to the comment strategy we talked about, and then also creating content in general, which is like, how do you do that? And how do you do that at scale? Anybody can post 5 times, but how do you post 6 months in a row? How do you generate that much content? And I think it really comes back to a point of view. It's a narrative. And I'm of the opinion as a brand guy that every brand should have a point of view. A brand should have a narrative because that's why they exist. The company exists for a reason in the world. They have either a vision or a purpose or a mission, and their product helps accomplish that. So there's a point of view embedded inside the company. So whether it's the company or yourself, enhancing and expanding that point of view in everything you engage with, most importantly, with the people who you want to buy, how do you
who you're
phrase
targeting?
that?
Yeah,
Who you're targeting? Thank you.
specifically talking to.
That you're specifically talking to. Yeah.
It gets clearer and clearer. And I think I like to go and compare it to the writing personal notes, writing a letter. And what I found with creating content at scale is it does get easier with practice, but the more I know about the individual I'm talking to and get into their real situation and using the words that they use, I feel like I know them. And so I'm writing to a friend, I'm writing to a colleague. I'm not writing to a mystery figure with all these assumptions. And so not only do I have a unique point of view based on what I've learned, but I also am using the knowledge that I've gained from conversations, from research with real people, not opinion pieces.
Now, I have a question for you on that thought.
Uh-oh.
How do you think about written content? And I mean like a mixture of blogs, newsletters, posts, I don't know, copywriting in general. But as a salesperson, like, is that useful anymore? Or like, how do you think it fits into buyer enablement? Or how should SDRs, AEs, et cetera, navigate like written content? Because we spend a lot of time on audio visual and like leveraging social media. So I really wanted to box out like written is still a thing and we should talk about it. So how do you think about that?
It's the same as any other medium. The biggest thing is you have 7 seconds or less to get someone's attention. How do you hook them? How do you tell a story that aligns with them, that they feel like, holy crap, they're talking right, like directly to me? And like we were talking about, Lavender does a great job of this. If you read Chris Walker's posts, it feels like he's talking directly to you. And so I think it would be irresponsible for me to say just to do one over the other. You have to layer it, and there has to come at different times. Certain things you'll notice that people prefer to read, like how-to guides, so they can go back and reference it. And where opinion pieces, they like to have the tone of voice and the body language to really understand where you're coming from, so they feel like they know where you're going. And so you have to think about how you're communicating and why. I would much rather have a checklist in front of me if you're telling me how to do something than like what we're doing right now, talking about our point of view of content creation, post-production, and distribution.
Yeah, nobody wants to find the second mark that somebody brings up inside of a 45-minute video, how to actually do something.
Spacebar.
Spacebar.
Right. Spacebar.
The number of times I've done that, I don't know. And it's frustrating, right? You want to create that user experience that like people actually like. And I think, as you said, content serves a specific purpose. To me, in the modern buying experience, I think written content is crucial to the buying enablement on the front end, the buyer's enablement process on the front end, because videos, video demos, etc. That can be part of it, but a lot of the research that people are going to do is comparisons. They want detailed, and they want to do it on their own time. So as long as you can make that asynchronous, and like people are actually going to be engaged with the written content that you're putting out, it could be a knowledge base, how-to guides as you brought up, or anything else. As long as it's not, as long as it's not just a blog with disparate pieces of content and there's no overarching narrative.
Oh, the curation, like a proper narrative with
Yeah, like
supporting each other.
you want that
Yeah.
point of view. If somebody goes and like looks at your insights, you want to see valuable content with a point of view and not just a mishmash of different sorts of things that they
Makes me
did.
think of TikTok or Twitter back in the day when there was the shorter characters. Why was Twitter? Jeez, I'm gonna keep going back to TikTok.
You're gonna mess those up a lot, man.
It's gonna happen, and we'll just let it. Talking about perfection, guys.
Oh,
Not me.
Same.
But one thing I'm noticing is working really well for written word is simplification. What's the point? And it goes actually to Kit's question. Did you want to jump into that, Morgan?
Pull this question up, man.
It's a good one. We're having really good. Thank you, everyone, for all your questions this week. These are no light and fluffy ones either.
No, and also at any time for those who are watching, if you want to submit advanced questions so we can feature you whether or not you're able to make the live stream or you want your question on the podcast, you can go to b2bpowerhour.com. That's where all the links to the podcast version of the show is. And you can also sign up to receive advanced agendas and submit your questions. So Kit asks, what is the B2B Power Hour's mission and how can we make our missions simple enough to understand but unique enough to not fall in the void? Whew, that's some deep stuff, man.
It's good.
I mean, if I don't know if Nick, you or I ever really formulated a mission statement, but I think the closest that we got to like a purpose, the reason of our existence is that we prepare future sales and marketing leaders to thrive in a world dominated by the way it's always been done. And that is, to me, so resonant because of my experience as a marketer that there's this like playbook for how you're supposed to do digital marketing. And I had found it effective maybe 2 in 10 times. You know, it wasn't effective all the time. And anymore, it's so expensive to run. And I think your perspective, Nick, on sales too, is there's this way sales has always been done.
And they force you into this hopelessness where you're like, especially now when you're kind of in your little hidey hole and you're like, dialing for dollars, and who do you call? What do you say to them? And I get so many people that reach out to me and they're like, I hate my job because I'm so sick of being turned down. I'm so sick of not feeling engaged with these people. And then I think of what we're doing, and we're really looking at how you show up in the market and how you're prioritizing those customers. So it's all about them and their buying experience. So you're selling and you're communicating in a way that aligns with how they want it. And so you're taking the friction out of this whole process, and it makes the opportunity for relationships. It makes the opportunity for it to be fun, where before, dare I say it, it was all work, no play.
And I think that the latter half of the question is really an exercise in positioning. How can we make our mission simple enough to understand, but unique enough so you don't disappear into the noise? That is just a positioning exercise. Like that is more or less branding 101. And that comes back to the reason your company exists. Why does it make money? What does it sell? What problems does it solve? And who's it for and what's it for? Like, who are you trying to sell to? What problem does it solve? What do they get out of working from you? Mission statements sometimes can be these arcane exercises in butterflies and meadows and rainbows. And like, that's fine for some companies. But for most B2B brands, what's important is that your mission is more or less the same reason that you're trying to sell your product. And if your product is not unique enough that it doesn't stand out against others in the same industry, you're going to have a whole lot of other problems besides just not being able to communicate your mission. Like, that's just positioning, right?
Yeah. And even talking about like getting your content out there, it's the same problem. If your positioning isn't tight, if you don't know specifically who you should be talking to and why, then you're going to get lost in the noise. So knowing that you're unique enough is that you can write an email to your target customer, and if you showed anyone else, it wouldn't make sense. What's the term? Bifurcation in marketing?
Yeah. Or segmentation, there's all sorts of terms.
Basically, when you're writing, it separates people. This is for me, written by people like me, or not. And I think that's kind of the goal.
And similarly in brand work, the classic brand exercise is remove your logo and any identification from your site or from your sales materials. And if somebody read that, do they know it's your company, or will they confuse you for a competitor? Like, do you sound any different than anybody else in your industry? Some of that is emanating from your mission. It's emanating from your fundamental positioning, and like storytelling and crafting a good narrative and all the rest of those are fundamental skills that we've brought up in content creation. But really, they do emanate from that core focus of the company. They start with, what is our reason for existing? And then you can start to create a story, to your point, and segment and bifurcate and focus on the specific people that get it. Like if I went out and talked to micro businesses with 3 to 5 people in the consumer world, they would probably have no idea what an MQL is, or an SQO, or an SAL, or all the alphabet soup that we throw around in the B2B world about marketing qualified leads and sales qualified leads, because that's not for them, right? That's not the lingo that they immerse themselves in. So if I wanted to do marketing for those companies, or I wanted to do demand gen for those companies, I'd take a totally different approach. But I'm focused on a specific set, and both of us in the show are focused on a specific set of folks, and we speak that same language. So that also is a way to help stand out amongst the noise.
Whew. Ooh, yeah, I was like, yeah, just take a moment, because there's a lot right there.
I feel like I really need to buy an actual soapbox and then just have it on hand at all times, just in case we run into this problem. Okay, so the last thing that I really wanted to cover, actually, about modern content creation, especially for sales teams, is the importance, and we sort of touched on this in different ways, but the importance that it is an aligned experience. So one of the conversations I actually had very recently is, content creation is marketing's domain, isn't it? Right? And so marketing, demand gen, branding, content strategy folks, whoever, are going to try and control what kind of content gets put out there. And what I think that it emanates from is a fear that the content a salesperson or a sales team or anybody else besides the marketing team puts out into the market is not going to be aligned with the brand. And we both know that's not necessarily true. And all it takes is good communication from the marketing department about the core elements of a brand, about the core positioning, the mission, how we want to show up, the tone of voice. Are you really serious? Are you selling to high wealth lawyers or whatever? Or can you be fun and playful? And all you really want to do is you want not just constructing a narrative, but constructing an experience. So from the first point of contact, whether through your content, whether through your outbound outreach, and whatever template email you're probably using for that, all the way through all of the content you produce, all the way through your website, all the way through actual calls with you as an account executive, as a sales representative, or whoever else, that is one consistent experience. And to me, that's not marketing's job. That is everyone's job. And content creation emanates from this idea that there's one revenue organization in a company, not a marketing department, a sales department, and a success or delivery department.
I have a question for you then.
Okay, go for it.
Who shouldn't be creating content?
Ooh, who shouldn't be creating content?
I always get asked who should.
Uh-huh.
I think it's important to highlight when you shouldn't, or who shouldn't, or like what that stage looks like.
I mean, I'm definitely more like a content cannon kind of guy. Like you're at a big arena and somebody's got the shirt cannon. Like everyone wants a shirt, so like everyone wants to create content. But I think that there's plenty of reasons why maybe a product team, like if you have a SaaS product, your development team may not be the best engine for content creation out on socials. And the reason is not necessarily because those devs would be quote unquote bad at creating content. They're probably more than capable of doing so. But you want to align that with your buying experience. Are they going to reach out to your dev? Do you want them to reach out to your dev, or do you want them to reach out to your account executive or your sales representative or your marketing lead or your product lead or your product marketing manager or whoever in your company? So I think if you have a clear vision, that's a tough question, but if you have a clear vision about your customer journey and how that journey is supposed to work, and when I mean how it's supposed to work, who they're actually supposed to talk to. Maybe if you're smaller, it's the specific people, but if you're bigger, it could be the specific roles. and then really centering content creation on those specific roles, I think there's lots and lots of leverage that companies could have there. And then the folks who fall outside of that customer journey map, who support the experience or the product development, but aren't necessarily directly interacting with customers or aren't potentially good leads for leverage, or not leads, but roles for leverage out on social networks, that's fine if they don't create content in my book. So that's how.
I like the dev comment. And one thing I jumped to my mind is like dev teaming up with service or customer success and then doing content for the land and expand.
100% though.
You know, knowing when you should create content and for who doesn't mean that every single person in the company is creating the same type of content for the same type of people. I think it should be said, because look at how many times people blank share company updates. Hey, look, we just went and, raised $10 million.
Woo.
And then you see somebody, or like we're hiring 10 people and blah, 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 blah. I saw a really good post the other day that somebody said, yeah, we're hiring 2 people. This is a great opportunity for people that are this, and this. But if this is you, or if you're doing this, and this, expecting that, it won't be a good fit. And they gave their own narrative and their own point of view that gave like a little peek behind the curtain so people knew what to expect. And I think that's the biggest thing that our content's doing right now, is it's giving an insider's view. So people are, and actually it goes back to even what David said the other day to me in our meeting, is he said, it's about confidence. Content creates confidence. And the biggest thing that I battle in sales is risk management. Because if they make a bad purchase, what's the opportunity cost of that bad purchase, or looking into a wrong fit product or service? But if they have content and they've spent the time doing the research, then they're not going to get fired. They're not going to get penalized. They're not going to look bad in front of their peers because they did a great thing that helped the company.
Totally. So Nick, if you had a team of sales staff at any company, and I know you work with them anyways, what would you say are the 3 things they should be doing now or next week, start doing, to accomplish what we've talked about today? Because I would be interested, especially as like a sales professional who also trains other sales professionals, like what do you especially think about as the top priorities for sales staff?
If they haven't done it already, a win-loss analysis. They should be interviewing people that are really good customers. And I would say 10 of each is fine. And then 10 that didn't work. Pay attention to the language they're using. Look at what they compared you against. Look at how they did their research and see where the disconnect was. And really niche in to figure out why it wasn't a good fit, so that you can spot it earlier and save everybody's time. And then use that for your content. And then I would start commenting on those really good fit customers and add in extra. Think if you only have a half an hour and you're only going to do 5. Show you care. Show you understand them. Give that little extra and use that as your content. And then as you're seeing themes that you're like, that's interesting. All these people are thinking this, but that doesn't align with, our category, or align with the service. So where's the disconnect? Take it back to the team and use that to create content. Look at the comments that explode and see if you can summarize that in a way, in a video, in an image, a carousel, some way, and put it out there for more people to see. So this is based on reality, not hearsay, not opinions, not meta-analysis. And marketing won't get mad at you for doing that.
So win-loss analysis, commenting, and do you have a third one?
The post. Turn those trends into just 2 or 3 posts a week. Less is more. Be consistent. I think it's been proven that Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturdays are the days to post 8 to 10 a.m. in the time zone that you're trying to target, and use 3 to 5 hashtags. If you have creator mode, you can use up to 5. One thing that I have found that was a happy accident or a wonderful fluke is I started throwing in our B2B Power Hour hashtag just in our regular posts, because that's where the content was coming from. And I started noticing people going back up to 2 months. and they would start, and you've probably seen it, they'll start liking or commenting, or because they're doing a deep dive because they want to learn more. And it'll be interesting to see how that relates to the podcast as well, because that's brand new.
Yeah, totally. What a great summary. I don't think I could have provided anything better. I think the last thought that really came to mind, because I know we're at time this morning, and thanks everyone for joining, is all of this is a skill. It's like building a muscle. It's not something that I got good at overnight. I did not emerge from the womb excellent at content creation. Like, that's not how it works. It's something that really gets developed. And to your point, especially developing that market intelligence, understanding what really is working out there helps you. It's like protein powder. It helps you recover more. It helps you grow muscle more. It helps develop your strength in developing content, because now you're not just listening, you're not just paying attention, you're taking that insight and you're trying to do more just consistently. And over time, you get to learn what works and what doesn't work. And what didn't work was what we were doing 10 weeks ago. Who knew?
And less is more. Like, as you get better, you can do more in the same amount of time. Going back to working out, what you used to be able to do a year ago, if you've been working out steady, would be your warm-up now. So don't expect yourself to be a pro at the start. Don't expect to do everything. Start small and build it up in baby steps. And you'll thank yourself, because then it's sustainable and it's fun. It doesn't kill you in the process. Just before we go, are there any questions that anybody wants to ask that are urgent that they really want an answer to before next week?
Because if not, you can always DM us directly, follow us, connect with us. We'd love to chat more. My inbox, and I know Nick certainly is, always open for discussion, comments. I'm going to say Nick is always open for debate. I am too. I'm just kidding. Gosh. Anyways, I don't see any comments coming in on our end. But if we missed it, just shoot us as a DM. We'd love to chat.
Thank you so much for everyone that's tuning in. Thank you so much that everyone's listening to the podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, please submit them early on the website.
Yep.
And happy selling. And today, happy content creation.
Indeed. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.
Take care, Morgan.